Who should pay for the first date then?
My answer is, doesn't matter. It would be nice if the person who suggested the date pays, but I think we spend way too much time focusing on the first date and way too little time thinking about the next 14,625 days. It's like a couple who's obsessed with the wedding. Fine, you want a nice wedding, great. What about the marriage? Same thing with money. First date, okay, we can have that conversation, but aren't you more interested in how your partner thinks about money and talks about money? Are they a cheapskate? Are they generous? Are they abundant? Did they grow up the same or different than you? That is something we don't talk about. Meanwhile, we have 5 million YouTube videos on who's gonna pay on the first date. We are missing the real point. The point of money in a relationship is not just about the first date. That's fun for clicks, but it's about, do we see money the same way? Do we connect? Are we gonna be rowing in the same direction, or are you gonna be doing that and I'm doing this, and we can never get aligned?
You can only make a first impression once, right? And if you are a guy, this is just how I feel anyway. If I go on a first date with a woman, and we have a wonderful date, it's a nice restaurant, and then it gets to the end of the day, and then I turn to her and say, "Shall we split the bill?" I couldn't even say it with a straight face, frankly. I definitely couldn't ask her to pay.
Yeah.
I just could never. And I think if you anonymously polled 10 of my female friends and said, how would you feel if on the first date, the guy asked you to pay? I think privately they would say, that's a bit of a turnoff, that's a red flag, that's an ick.
I think probably that's true. And again, goes to the power of socialization, right? Like, culture is very difficult to change. We gotta admit that, we gotta acknowledge that. And when I was dating, I paid for dates. So I don't have a problem with it. I like to be generous. I think that when you are in a relationship, you like to know that your partner is generous too. Now, generous comes in lots of ways. It could be paying for dates. It could be planning a trip. It could be being thoughtful and, buying extra toothpaste because we're running low. There's so many different ways to be generous. But generosity for me would be a value. Paying for a date, sure, I paid for dates. I'm happy to. I like to do it. But generosity to me is way more important to talk about that in a relationship versus the date itself.
Because chivalry, this idea that the man is to lead in that regard and to, open the door and open the car door and pull out the chair.
Yeah, but think about it. I agree with all that stuff. I support it. But think about what message that sends when you tell men you're supposed to be chivalrous, but there's no real context, no real teaching around it. And let's say you have a 26-year-old guy now who's earning less than his girlfriend.